What's up, everybody? The Pack is back with another episode of the Property Management Roundtable. Today, we kick it off with a quote from venture capitalist Fred Wilson. He said a VC one time shared with him three things that every CEO should do. And one is set mission, vision, and strategy and communicate that. Number two is hire, retain talent. And number three is make sure there's enough cash in the bank. So we talk about that and things we're working on within our organizations. The next thing we discover and talk about is what are we doing to stay healthy during this coronavirus pandemic? We think it's very important to maintain mental health, and what are we doing to maintain that? Mikey with Atrium out of Orlando, Florida, has 535 new units that he's added in the last month. And so we talk about things he's doing to generate that kind of business. And then the last thing is books we're reading. What are we doing to continue to learn? That's it. The Property Management Roundtable coming right at you. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Property Management Roundtable. I've got the guys back here, and we are ready to discuss. I'm going to throw out the first question, as I always do. It was something I was thinking about today. I'm putting together a talk that I'm supposed to give at the end of next month, and it's a quote that I have hanging actually in my office, and I think about it often. And the quote is, well, let me kind of give you some context first. Fred Wilson, who's a VC, gave this, somebody told him, what are the three most important things a CEO does? And so this is something that Fred Wilson always tells all the CEOs that he invests in, is that the CEO does only three things: sets the overall vision and strategy of the company and communicates it to all stakeholders, recruits, hires, and retains the very best talent for the company, and make sure there's always enough cash in the bank. So first question, I'm going to lob it out there to everybody because everybody runs different roles at the company. I'm interested which one of those three kind of resonates with you and how you're working on improving it or how you think you've perfected it. Duke, you want to start?
Sure. The third one, not running out of money, like when that one's on your mind, that's the only thing that you can think about, right? That totally consumes you. The first one, as you're reading that list, the first one, like I had this little wave of panic because like during COVID, I feel more and more disconnected, and we do our best to connect with folks through Zoom and other avenues. But like that's the one I worry about the most during this is like, would our team say that about me today? I don't know. Hopefully they would, but in a way, COVID's been going on so long now, it feels like forever. It feels like a lifetime ago from where we were all together physically. And that if you'd asked me 4 months ago, was I doing number one pretty well? I would say, yeah, I think so. Am I doing it now? Well, I don't know. We have our staff meeting get together every 2 weeks with everybody there, but still it's 30 to 60 minutes, and we're covering lots of topics. And would all of our team know today where we're headed? Hopefully, but I don't know. So that as you were reading that's what came to mind.
Have you added anything to that cadence of communication during this time? I know you sent out a video a few weeks ago, but have you added anything to that cadence of how much you're communicating?
So we do the staff meeting every 2 weeks. We do the exec team meeting every week. We have the one-to-ones every week with the direct reports. We've done like some fun stuff like a virtual happy hour. We're planning a second kind of virtual get together that's all more social and fun. We communicate on workplace more. Workplace is like internal Facebook, and I see more exec team members and other people just posting on there. But that's about it. When COVID started, you feel like you were just, in my mind, we were just doing this for a month or 2 months, and now it feels like we're going to do it forever. And so, it's got me thinking about what we can do a little better to make everyone feel more connected.
Awesome. Tim, is there anything you would add to that, kind of what you're doing with your team?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to Duke's point, I think it maybe the way we're structured, he is probably a little bit further out of it. He kind of sets the vision to our exec team, and then we try to throw it down to our direct reports, kind of more the boots on the ground people. So, yeah, I mean, I think whether it's CEO or however you're structured, I think making sure that vision is constantly renewed in people's minds, and even when it's altered slightly, right? Like the big picture is always the same, but how are you getting there sometimes gets a little bit different, especially during this COVID crisis. I think, to me, obviously the money thing is huge, but to me the vision piece and getting the right people on board that can carry it through, those are probably the two most important to me. So when you were mentioning that, I was thinking about people. We always go over what keeps us up at night, and my response is usually something around people. Yeah. And so I think that people piece is maybe the biggest part. You can have great success without great systems, without tons of cash, without a great vision, if you have the right people in place.
So that's from Tim and Duke at Dodson Property Management. Vince, what all's going on at mine? Actually, we need to congratulate Vince on the air. Had another baby. Congrats, Vince. Very, very excited. The fact that you're jumping on this call shows you how important this podcast is amidst, a 2-week-old. So very happy that you're here, Vince.
Give us the stats. How big was the baby? Can't hear him.
He's speechless.
He's speechless about it?
Speechless about the baby.
Sorry, guys. I technical difficulties. He was 7 pounds, 8 ounces, quick delivery, healthy baby, and Steph, my wife, and him are recovering well. So it's been good. I mean, we were in and out of the hospital in 36 hours. They were pretty adamant about getting us out, given the current environment with COVID, and if everyone was healthy, they sent us home. So it's been nice to get acclimated back home. And Avia, our daughter, has been super helpful and cute with him. She hasn't killed him yet, so that's been good. But yeah, thanks guys.
And you named him Vincent.
Yeah, Vincent Luca.
Is that like a junior, or how does that work?
No, not a junior, just Vincent.
Good.
Different middle name than you?
Yeah.
And you guys currently have the same haircut.
Actually, he has more hair than me.
Well, hey man, I'm not criticizing. I just thought.
Yeah.
So talk to me, Vince, a little bit about what do y'all think? What do you think y'all are working on most at Mind within the context of those three things?
I think probably the second thing you mentioned, hiring. What did you phrase it? So yeah, recruiting. So one of our
hiring and retaining.
Yeah, one of our values is having a team. So we're always striving to train our current folks on any shortfalls that they have, or make sure they're cross-trained in different departments. But we have a few leadership positions that we're currently recruiting for that are pretty important for this next chapter of our organization. So we're excited to be recruiting, and looking for folks. There's a lot of talent out there right now that we may not have otherwise had access to. So we're excited about that. We just closed our Series C, which you guys are aware of. So that gets us money in the bank for a little bit, for us to really focus on building our A team and focusing on bringing the company to the next level.
Can I ask something there? Sorry.
Yeah.
With such a big team and with everything changing so much, and always wanting an A team, how are you communicating the changes in either process or law or just what's coming out that your people need to know? How are you communicating that these days, especially with people working from home?
Yeah, so we're doing it a few ways. I mean, we have a training internal team that trains for onboarding. I think we kind of discussed that last podcast, and they'll update, any of the new folks that are coming in, they'll train them on most updated processes across each region. And then each of our regions also will be, so we have a regional director in each of our markets that is responsible for making sure that their teams are up to speed on the current local regulatory issues. So it's kind of a multiple pronged approach of like locally, there's responsibility on the regional directors, and then from a corporate standpoint, we have resources that we're rolling out and trying to make sure that everybody's up to speed on things. But it's changing so quickly, and regardless of this current environment, our process, you guys are, you know, your processes change often as well, you know, so we're trying to keep up on product changes that our team needs to be aware of, and we have kind of focus groups that have been in existence for a while, that make sure key stakeholders that touch our product in different ways are all up to speed.
Mikey,
Cool,
you're
that's-
coming from our Panera Bread location. Which one of these three things are you guys working on right now?
So right now I'm working on trying to, you know, attract and retain talent for the company. I honestly, that's kind of one of the things that I've done, you know, halfway decently throughout my career, is just finding people that are smarter and more talented than I am. You need those people around you to push you and to do the things you can't. So that's really been my focus. You know, right now we just took over a big acquisition up in Gainesville. So for us, being 2 hours away, it's going to be crucial for us to have good talent and good people remote that we can rely on to kind of run it like Atrium does. So that's what I'm really focused on, and you know, thankfully it's one of the things I've done, you know, halfway decently throughout my career.
That's awesome. And you have a buddy right now I'm competing with to become champion of June on our Whoop stuff. So you just tell that guy he better turn it up if he's going to win it.
Mark is currently training to run a sub 3-hour marathon. So he's in pretty decent shape for a 35-year-old or whatever he is.
Well, he's a worthy opponent then. No,
are you gonna get him, Matthew? Are you gonna get him?
I don't know. I went out today and ran about 9 miles in 95-degree heat, so it was brutal. And I was just thinking about him the whole time. I actually felt pretty good out there. Sometimes I feel really bad, and there's no reason. I have a really low recovery right now, and I felt really good today. So maybe it's the competition that gets you going.
Well, you've edged him out, buddy. You're 0.3 ahead of him right now after that little 9-mile banger.
I'm trying to break his heart. I'm trying to break his will 2 days before the end.
The problem is, like, you're racing days that you don't really remember from before. So, like, it could have a big impact. Like, if you had low days.
Yep. It's a whole month thing. So it's kind of funny when I look at this, I always feel like I'm trying to fix something, one of these three things. Right now, we're putting a very big emphasis on retaining talent and trying to continuously to develop people. We call it our core focus, which is the things that are kind of our why for existing, if you think about Simon Sinek. And so we are really putting a big focus on developing people. And so mine is really the second one right now. And it's kind of interesting because Duke brought up the point that it's been very hard to communicate vision and strategy right now during the coronavirus kind of lockdown where people are in their own homes. And I got a lot of feedback. I just did my one-to-ones last week, and I got a ton of feedback from people that they feel like they're kind of out of the loop. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And so those two things are things that I'm thinking about quite often. And I'll tell you, our rock, which is kind of my 60-day goal, is to create what we call a team leader training curriculum. And we're going to put that into Lessonly. And it's all the things in my brain and in Gray, who runs our Denver market, and Duncan, who runs our Atlanta market. You know, they've been here a while. How do you get what's out of our brains into new team members? And so we're trying to figure out, we're recording a ton of content right now. We're actually doing almost like an internal podcast and trying to get what we know, because one of the things that I found was we're creating some of the exact same problems that I made when I was running the company 5 or 6 years ago, just here in Birmingham. Perfect example is just a workers' comp audit. I had a $40,000 workers' comp bill one year about 4 or 5 years ago. And then this year we have a $100,000 workers' comp bill, and all that can be avoided by getting insurance. So, you just start to trip up over the same things over and over again. How do you institutionalize knowledge so that things get passed down within the organization as you continue to grow it?
Matthew, I'm interested on the topic of why people felt they were out of the loop, because I feel like we've done an amazing job with communication and we still get that feedback. Was it that they're actually out of the loop, or is there just not that much to report and we all have so many questions right now? Or is it a combination?
I think we're growing and things are changing so quickly that you forget what you communicated within the organization. So you may make a decision at leadership and have communicated it to 80% of the stakeholders, and you feel like you've been talking about it forever. And then all of a sudden you realize you forgot to loop in one of the right people that it involves. And so I think it's just about being very intentional about who needs to know everything. The other thing, we have what we call Ask Anything Friday, where it's kind of like an all call and anybody can just ask whatever they want to know. Generally I run it, but we have some other people in leadership that'll run it when I can't do it. And we give them anybody the ability to ask anything they want about the organization. And, we're going through a rebrand right now, which is pretty exciting, and everybody wants to know about that. But it's even though you feel like you're being very intentional, I feel like as your organization grows, you're always going to be repeating the same messages over and over and over again, almost to the point where you get really bored with it. But I think that repetition is super important to get it to stick and make sure that everybody hears it.
What do you guys feel like it might, like not being able to kind of push that vision out and give direction? Do you think any of that has to do with not being physically together? I know we talked about early on, like the effects of what it's going to, all of us being together via Zoom meetings versus important, or versus, our company culture and how that's going to be affected down the road if we're not able to spend time together in the office. Do you think that this is kind of happening, or this is a byproduct of that at all?
I don't know the answer. I don't think that's the answer, because obviously we have, like, one of the people that gave us the feedback is in Little Rock and one is in Nashville. So it's not like we're together all the time anyways. One of the things we did do, again, going back to one of Ray Dalio's thoughts, is he says the best number of people to have in a meeting is 5 plus or minus 2. So that's anywhere from 3 to 7 people. And so our level 10 meetings, we've been trying to pare them down to no more than 7 people. And because one of the things we found is when you have 12 or 13 people in a level 10, there's half of them just sit there and they don't contribute. And especially in a Zoom environment, you really feel like they're probably doing something else and not paying attention. So we just thought, hey, we're only going to have the key stakeholders in the meeting. But that piece of the level 10 meeting where it talks about cascading messages, then it becomes super important to make sure that whatever you decide in there, that you communicate that to those people. We're also recording those meetings. So one of the things I've been doing is going back and listening to the meetings. And I think that's what we're going to have to do, is make sure that, yeah, you're not in the meeting, but you still need to be listening to the meeting.
Yeah, Matthew, we do that. Similarly, we do this top of mind I think now it's every other week, where it's an open forum for people to ask questions. And we were getting constant feedback, especially in the new, virtual meeting world, of too many meetings too. So we just implemented a no meeting day every month, and we tested it last month it was like a Thursday that we did no meetings, no internal meetings. Obviously there's some folks that can't as easily accommodate, but we were able to track their productivity that day, and it was pretty eye-opening how much more productive they were without being bogged down in meetings. And we were actually kind of pleasantly surprised that it's not like anybody took the day off. They just were able to focus and accomplish certain tasks. So that feedback directly came from a top of mind, where we just opened it up and said open forum, so people submit their questions anonymously through Tiny Pulse is what we use. And then, so, Doug's the one that usually runs it, but he doesn't see who's sending the questions. So there's some difficult questions that come across the board, but it speaks to just being transparent and giving people a comfortable place to open up.
What are you guys doing? I mean, are there any mechanisms you guys are doing to get people to participate in that? It seems like, we call them town halls every other Thursday, and it seemed like we had a lot of engagement at the beginning of those when there were a lot of questions about, hey, when are we going to open up? What's going on with the laws? What's happening here? Now we've seen a drop off where we're kind of like prompting things more than that. Are you guys doing anything special to curate those questions?
So in parallel, we have been tracking the happiness score of each department. And so the trend line is the happier the departments, the less questions at top of mind usually, right? So we have seen that, generally, like people are, still feeling a little uneasy about shelter in place and the other things going on in the world. So questions have kind of shifted more towards that. But to prompt them to submit questions, we have toyed with, we'll throw out some topics like in the Tiny Pulse survey, we'll say, please answer, what are the top 3 things that are concerning you in your current role? And if we don't get enough questions submitted, then we'll kind of dive deeper on how people responded to those surveys.
What about you, Maddie?
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny because we don't submit them anonymously, and we still get some pretty hard questions. I think we've created a pretty, I would say the people that have been here at least 6 months understand that our organization is very transparent, so they'll ask very hard questions. But I'm sitting here thinking, as Vince, I don't know the inverse of it either, right? Like if I did seek anonymous questions, if I would actually get even better questions. So, but we do have plenty of questions, and it's everything from success habits to again, our rebranding. Everybody's super interested in that right now. When are we coming back to the office? Just things you want people to know. And if one person has the guts to ask it, that other people are thinking some of the same things. I'm interested what questions y'all get at Dodson.
Sorry to interrupt, the rebranding, is it public yet? What y'all picked?
We have not picked. So it's not public just because we don't have any, we don't have a brand yet.
Well, let us know, and we'll be there on the Ask Us Fridays for that review.
Yeah.
Just don't pick the one that I hate. The other 9 were good. Just the one that I hated. Don't go with that one.
Well, we gave it over to a branding company, and we said, here's some possibilities, but we also want to know what your best one is.
Gotcha.
Or best 2 or 3. So what do people ask you, Duke, when you're doing these town hall meetings?
Well, they ask less questions than I would like. Tim kind of referenced that a little, is that we try to stir up some activity. And the first one we had 3 or 4 questions submitted ahead of time, and then next meeting we had 1, and the next meeting we've had 0. And they'll pop in with a question here and there, but other than when are we going to reopen, there hasn't been many kind of big questions lately.
Is it anonymous?
We can do it either way. We say email Madeline, who's head of HR, and you can be anonymous, or you can submit it on the chat during the meeting, or you can email Madeline during the meeting, or raise your hand. We'll have about, on these town halls, we have about 100 people at our company. About 50 of them will show up for the town hall, so it's about half. Maybe it's anywhere from 40 to 65 will show up, and so some people will get intimidated by the number of people, and they're afraid to speak. So I don't know. We're trying to think of ways to encourage more questions.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. I mean, we've got a couple questions around, like, Richmond's got a lot going on, like a lot of other places. It seems like our protests seem to be going on longer than other places, but or
it's
more consistent, maybe I should say.
We have the monuments that and the protesters, and we have the mayoral elections coming up this year, all city council elections this year, and it feels like a little bit like chaos in our town. So,
yeah.
So I don't know how that plays.
Yeah, so there's been a couple questions around like what are we doing, how are we supporting X, Y, and Z, and it was Pride Month, and so usually we sponsor the Pride Festival, and that wasn't going on. So like questions around external stuff more than internal stuff, which I find interesting. I like the ideas that Vince had about maybe sending out a survey and getting people to respond back to you and kind of diving deeper into that. That sounds a lot better than, hey, while you're working, send us some other stuff that you can be thinking about work on, so we may have to try that, Denny.
What do you
So I've heard this kind of come up a couple of times in the conversation. It's tough to get people to engage in Zoom meetings. A little tougher than it would be, when you're in person, because it's so much easier to just check out, right? So do you guys all have something that you've done that's been successful that we can offer kind of our listeners out there? So today, for example, we had our level 10 offsite. And before the meeting, everybody had their computers out to start the meeting, which is a big no-no if you've read the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And I just literally called them out on it. I was like, we're all here together, right? You guys know you shouldn't be working on other stuff. So why does everybody have their laptops out? And literally everybody looked at each other and closed their laptops. And we had a 6-hour meeting with no distraction. But when you're on Zoom, it's so hard to not be distracted by the problems that are in your face. So I think part of it is probably just us confronting that issue and saying, hey guys, remember, you got to not be working on other things. But you also want to be cognizant on not be rude and all that kind of stuff and be nice guys, which we all are. So has anybody else found anything that's successful in getting people to engage? I like what you were saying about getting questions ahead of time, but how do you re-engage people?
I mean, just on like regular meetings, I've tried to remind myself. There's a funny Instagram handle. It's like guy holding up sign or something like that. And he had a funny one where it was like, not all phone calls need to be Zoom meetings. Like you can actually, I think we forget now these days that you can just have a regular phone call with people. And then I've been trying to just be really diligent about starting on time and then ending early if you can. I mean, there's nothing better in this day and age than giving people 10 minutes of their time back. I mean, you don't need to. That's one of the things that happens in person. You BS a lot, especially when you have company cultures like ours, Mikey. And I think just on Zoom, you can kind of get to the point a little bit better. You hit your agenda items, and then, hey, there's no reason to talk for the next 10 minutes unless you have something else to talk about. Go recapture this time, spend 10 minutes making your kids lunch or work on something else or something. So trying to be cognizant of that, I think has helped keep people engaged, and it gets people go and through our agenda instead of work on this, work on that, and then we're distracted during the meeting because they know, we've kind of created that. They know if we get done with this in time, we're out. We're not going to rush it, but we're also not going to pay attention to other stuff.
This isn't really relevant for remote folks, but I know for a couple guys that work on my team here in the Bay Area, we're still shelter in place, but that doesn't mean I can't meet with them and go do a socially distant walk. So like one of the guys on our growth team, he did really well this month, and I haven't seen him for like 3 months. And I was like, what the hell are we doing? Like, let's just go walk. Like, let's get together and go walk. And we got more accomplished in 2 hours of walking. We got exercise, we got fresh air, we got some sun, we laughed, we talked about business stuff, personal stuff, and we wouldn't have got that via Zoom. So again, that's irrelevant to remote workers, but if you can, just, I think getting outside with your team is helpful.
Yeah, I think all you extroverts hate Zoom. Us introverts, we love Zoom. I mean, we can shut it off fast, and I think it goes back to size too. Again, I think you get too many people in a meeting, and it becomes really easy for somebody not to contribute. When you have 5 people in a meeting, it is very hard for one person to not contribute to that meeting, or not feel the burden of contributing. But when you have 15 people, you have so many people in there that people either don't feel the burden of contributing or aren't willing to interject when they think of something. So I think it also gets back to size.
Have you utilized breakout rooms in Zoom? We had a couple brainstorming sessions where I agree with you on the size thing, but you can break down your meetings or at least send people out like in small groups and then bring them back to the main meeting so that you can make sure that everybody's working on something.
Where do you find that in Zoom?
It's you have to have the right level of Zoom,
Account
but
or whatever?
yeah, I'm sure you have it, but it's just in the settings and you can create it ahead of time. Just go back into the, I mean, I don't want to pull it up because we were just talking about being distracted while we were doing other stuff, but it's pretty easy to find. I can find it, so y'all can find it.
I
You just
also
have to
think
set it. You have to set it up on the back end. So go into your Zoom account and set it up on the back end to enable it, and then it's just in the settings piece.
Gotcha.
Hey, you guys realize that Vincent just gave away his secret to those big 9 strain activities? 2-hour walk.
2-hour
walks. That's how you.
walk. If you need a 9 every day for the rest of your life, goes for a 2-hour walk.
Just
I'm
walk. And
steady.
his incredible suntan.
I'm steady, very, very consistent.
He's not going to get injured like that, guys. He's got
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that and the 30-minute stair run.
This
But
actually.
I was going to say something basic is just setting agendas for meetings like ahead of time and sending it to your teams. Like I think we've been finding there's a lot of folks that are in meetings that just don't need to be there a lot of times, and I think we're just so accustomed to just having folks there. But if you set a clear agenda and you clearly know that someone's not talking or they're just not needed, then
We'll finish with this guy. Cut him loose. Cut him loose. Get him off there.
yeah.
Well, you mentioned something, Vince, kind of pivot, or we were making fun of you, is long walks. I'm curious what everybody's been doing to stay mentally healthy during this lockdown. I mean, we're stuck in our houses, at least all of you who aren't in Alabama. We're not. We're life is pretty normal in Alabama. Probably pretty normal in Florida too, Mike, isn't it?
We were trending normal, and then things started to get worse. Now we're becoming the hotbed that you guys thought we were going to be the whole time.
So
That's
I'm
funny
curious.
how that works. That's funny how that works when you don't do what the experts tell you to do. That suddenly what they say is going to happens sometimes. Not every time. So maybe it was worth the risk. I don't know.
Tim, what are you doing to stay emotionally healthy?
Me?
Yes.
All right. So here's the.
Wait. Is Tim emotionally healthy?
Well, I thought that was probably a poor question, actually, as I was in the middle of saying it. But but Tim acted like it was a good question, so I just went with it.
Man. Oh, that hurt. That was tough. Well, I haven't been hanging out with Mike.
I love you, buddy.
That's me at a regular check-in. No, I mean, to be honest with you, just trying to make best of the situation, try to stay in a positive frame of mind. I mean, there's a lot of negativity out there. There's a lot of noise, and people have to do what they need to do to stay mentally healthy. Some people vent on Facebook and they're negative out there. I've been trying to stay positive. A couple things I've been doing. One, trying to play golf as much as I can. I enjoy golf most of the time. It's open. You're allowed to do it. It's pretty safe out there in terms of activities you can be doing. But I mean, that said, go for a walk. Go to a state park. And social distance and do those things. And then the other thing, quite frankly, and I kind of want to talk about it, was I've been going to therapy once a week. I mean, I've been talking to a professional every week, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. It's been very helpful for me, and I think it's one of those things. If it's good enough for Michael Phelps, it's probably good enough for me because his strain score is a little bit better than mine consistently. But yeah, I mean, I talk to somebody every Wednesday morning, and it's actually at the start of this thing, I was in a bad place. I had some stuff this year that I was struggling with, but it's been very, very helpful. And even, again, talking about ending meetings early, I don't take all the time every week. And sometimes I just say, hey, I'm done. I'm going to go. It's just somebody to talk to, somebody to keep you honest a little bit, kind of the way we keep ourselves honest. So I suggest having a friend group or somebody you can chat with.
Is this on Zoom?
Yep, we do it. Well, it's not on Zoom. We FaceTimed once, I think, but they've got their own proprietary, it's very
gotcha. Meets all the requirements of
whatever
whatever you're supposed to meet. Yeah,
whatever.
We're property managers, not medical professionals.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Awesome. Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that, Tim. Totally agree that, Michael Phelps also has a coach, and so does Tiger Woods, even though they're the best golfer and best swimmer ever. They still had coaches. So, anytime you're running an organization, it's emotionally taxing. You've got your family, you're running an organization, and you give a lot of time to NARPM, so you've got a lot of people pulling you in multiple directions. So, to me, it makes a lot of sense.
And I have to work with Duke every day.
Oh
So
gosh,
you know,
yeah,
keep that in mind. Yeah.
that was
You know, one thing I've seen both of you, I've seen more posts of your family, Duke and Tim, than I have, previously before this. So I think that's one thing that we're probably all doing a little more of, like appreciating that time with our family, spending the time with our family. Like I've gotten selfies of Matthew at his house, hanging out with his kids. Tim, I saw a picture of you taking a road trip with the family this week in the car, looking happy. And I know I've taken more photos of my kids, and I swam with my kids all weekend long, where normally I'd have work sprinkled in there, and it's kind of forced me to, or I don't know if it's forced me to, or if it's just been a byproduct of it, but I've spent a lot more time with the family, and really, quality time with the kids during the crisis here.
That's a good point.
I read somewhere where vitamin D was critical to beating coronavirus, and that's one thing you can get from being outside.
True.
What are you doing, Duke?
I mean, so I'm in phase 2 of my coronavirus search for well-being. Like the first 3 to 4 weeks, it was weird. I enjoyed it. Like I think it was a combination of being home more, around the family more, and that was new and different. It felt cool to see my son, Tuesday at lunch and Thursday at lunch, which wasn't the norm. And I was mixing exercise time, and because of the lack of meetings, I got caught up on stuff, and I felt a sense of accomplishment about that. And also, I think all of us probably hate to admit it, those first 2 or 3 weeks of COVID, like we felt needed as like leaders of the organization. We had to communicate with each other, like in this group, but with our exec team and to our people and to our clients, and like we felt needed, and that probably contributed to feeling mentally healthy. And then the last month or two, I'm kind of been getting real itchy. I'm just like you joked about being an introvert or an extrovert. Like I truly miss the happy hours and the conferences and the lunches. I would have lunch with someone 2, 3, 4 times a week, and so that's missing. And so I'm really anxious to get back to normal. And that normal, like we said, is not going to happen for a while. So, I think staying mentally healthy is probably the same for me as it was pre-COVID. It's a balance of, sleep, exercise, eating healthy, not being hungover. All those things contribute to kind of, healthy, good energy level for me, which usually contributes to being mentally healthy. But I do miss the interacting, the people component. And so I do look forward to the next time I get to party with Mike Kraus at a NARPM conference. I look forward to that quite a bit.
Is there not a little bit of you to tie these two subjects together that enjoys Zoom? Because like when the meeting's over, you don't have to go get in your car and drive 30 minutes back to your office, and you can literally just shut it down and start working on, your next important thing.
I did like that. The first 3 to 4 weeks, that's where I gained time back. Like I have this kind of running to-do list, and as you know, the top 7 things are really important to get done that day, and the rest gets pushed down and strategically parked, whatever. I literally got all my stuff caught up. I was done. I had I cleaned out that shelf. I cleaned out this file cabinet. I had so much, stuff done, but that's over. I'm ready for more stuff to fall on my plate.
I really hate to hear it, because that's usually when I start to get a lot of emails at 4 a.m.
Yeah,
that,
coming, buddy.
That sounds like delegation. I need more stuff to fall on my plate so I can push it onto Tim.
Yep.
Tim's plate.
That's Itchy Duke is my least favorite Duke. Content Duke is my most favorite Duke.
It's a phase, Timmy. Itchy Duke is my natural state.
I know it is.
Yeah.
That's why I always try to keep you in comfort mode, man. I don't take you golfing, get you a drink, dude. Yeah.
Mike, you were overtraining so much you got injured during this time. Tell us what's keeping you sane?
Yeah, man, I'm super bummed about not being able to run. I was lifting heavy and hurt my leg, my hip. So I've been doing a little bit of PT and chiropractic, and that part really stinks, man. It sucks up a lot of time. My chiropractor's pretty far away. It's not good.
Are you feeling better? I mean, when are we going to get
little
the full Mike Kraus back?
I hope I come back soon. So I've been lifting and doing core, working on this dad bod. So still trying to stay active and stay healthy, but I have started spending a lot more time working. I think you guys have probably seen my sleep scores really degenerate again. So like sickening work ethic Mike has made a reappearance, just due to some of the things that are going on in our business that are just requiring more time. We've taken on right around like 535 new doors since COVID started. So it's just requiring a lot more input, and it's been, but all good, all positive. So still trying to stay healthy, still trying to do all that stuff, and still trying to make time for the family. It's a balance right now. I'm trying to fit it all in.
You didn't tell us what you did, but my knee was all messed up and then my foot was all messed up so bad I can't run still. But we just got the Peloton, Mike. Can you do it? Can you do a bike ride?
Probably. I don't have $3,500 to drop on it. I need to come work for you guys.
It wasn't $3,500. Don't worry.
Just $2,500 or
30, 3,000, $29.99. I've been swimming a little bit, Timmy, and more just lifting arms and doing core and trying to do that. So, and I ran 1.5 miles on Saturday. I'm going to run if the weather holds up tonight. So we'll see what happens.
Well, you can just move into Richmond.
I've been outside a lot more working out. Sorry, Tim. Sorry. I know you guys joke about my strain, but I've been exercising a lot outside, which is not normal for me. Like I usually am inside doing, I usually do like base camp classes or boot camp classes. And I don't know, like when it opens back up, I don't know if, I kind of like this new habit of being outside and, I'm not a big runner, but like I've kind of started to run more, which has been just nice. It's like refreshing, even if it's just a slight jog outside. It's been great. And it's actually the only place I could get some freaking quiet right now because I have like 2 kids and my wife, and we live in the city and it's loud. And I float, like one thing I think I told you guys I used to do often was isolation tanks, floating. I would do it every other week, and it was my form of therapy. It's really started to wear on me that I haven't been able to do that in 3 months. So I've been working on, like, I think to your point, Mikey, about just working a lot is I kind of have an obsessive compulsive personality, and it can be healthy at times and it could also not be healthy at times. So I picked up, a side project that I've been really passionate about for a long time that I've been spending my, moonlighting hours working on. And it's been therapeutic just because when you're feeling accomplished, I think that is, it makes you feel good. Like making little things like, making the bed every morning, like, many military folks say to do, accomplishing a project, setting goals, it's been therapeutic. So this kind of regimented structure that we've been forced into has actually been pretty healthy. Like if we're not regimented around the house, especially now with this little guy that's arrived, we're all gonna just lose it here. So luckily my wife is, open to that, or else I don't know if we make it out of this on the other side.
It's been pretty good for me. I've spent a lot of time outside. I went from working out early in the morning to now I'm working out at lunch and eating lunch. So one of the things that I was really in tune to is wanting to create 2 mornings. So what would happen is my energy levels would kind of bottom out at about 3:00 in the afternoon, and I would just struggle and just do really repetitive, brainless work from 3 to 6. And it really was kind of pointless. So now I wake up, come into work a morning, go home, work out, eat lunch. And when I come back here, I'm back to being sharp again. It feels like a second morning. And I think I've only had 3 days over the last 4 months where I've felt really tired in the afternoon. And so that's been a really good thing for me. And that's something I would love to continue even into kind of post-coronavirus stuff. But one of the things that scares me is I'll have to go back to having lunches, Duke. So you're excited about going back to lunch. I'm stressing the fact that I got to go back to lunch and it's going to mess up my schedule.
Matthew, what do you?
Matthew, the introvert is really coming out in you over this coronavirus here, buddy.
Well, I
Coming
mean,
alive.
introverts are crushing this coronavirus thing. It's like the world we've always wanted.
Sorry, Vince.
Oh no, I mean, kind of random question, but also just curious. What do you eat? Like, what's your lunch look like, Matthew? Like, what do you get into?
Yeah,
what-
so I have first of all, I've gotten on these athletic greens. Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan, I think, promote them. Knock on wood, but I have not been sick in over a year and a half. So since I started on them, and at first I started just taking them in the morning. Now I take them twice a day. So I take them in the morning, first thing, and then I take them right after my workout. And then I drink a shake, and then I'll take a shower and kind of let that digest, and then I'll have some sort of meal. I eat a lot of we have this kind of like farm to table takeout place in Birmingham called Urban Cookhouse. I'll eat there, or I'll eat leftovers from the night before. And
So like a protein shake. So the
athletic greens.
athletic green shake, and then a protein shake.
Yeah.
And then shower, and then just like a healthy lunch,
And
like
then a
salad
meal.
or-
Yep. And I'll tell you, I mean, we were joking earlier, but I feel like I'm in great shape. Like I ran today in a 95-degree heat, and it asked you how you felt, and I said peak, because it is so hot here, and I just really felt good the whole time I was running. And part of it is I had a good podcast on, so I was kind of into that. And even the last little bit when it was hot, it was out in the sun, I was still able to just kind of focus on the moment and being like not trying to get to the end. One of the things about workouts when you're running, or you're just always focused on the end, and that, to me, that's just mentally hard. Whereas if you forget about the end and just kind of focus on, being in the moment, it really makes it so much easier to finish that workout. Time will just pass without you stressing the end of it. Has anybody else experienced that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I have a question for the general group on caffeine consumption. I know this is a property management podcast, but I'm curious. Well, because I'm sure you guys.
No, this is us just having dinner, and these are things we would ask anyways.
So I think I'm like at the point on the brink of like, an intervention at our next podcast of like too much caffeine. Like I'm at like my peak caffeine performance.
How much do you drink a day? How much coffee?
I mean, it's getting, maybe 10 to 12 espressos a day.
Holy cow.
What happens if you don't? Like, do you get tired? Like, why do you keep drinking the caffeine?
Yeah, I mean,
This is why he can't get his strain up. He's like, his heart is like constantly in a state of strain. It's like it doesn't understand.
so I mean, like I'll start the morning with like my routine of a triple espresso. Just like start the day off, have a nice espresso.
Well, that's not just because that's not normal right there. Like that's just your start, and that's a lot. But anyways, go ahead.
Well, do you need it to function, or do you feel like it's just your routine and you enjoy it?
I enjoy it. Like I enjoy espresso. Like I'm not drinking like milky, big cups of coffee. I'm drinking just espresso. It's kind of just, it's habitual now, right? Like but it's the caffeine. I think I'm definitely starting to feel, around noon, I'm feeling a come down. So I'll have an espresso, but then I'm starting to notice like irritability. Like I think caffeine brings irritability. So towards the end of the day, when I probably need to be, I'm most vulnerable to be irritable, like that 5 o'clock hour with 2 kids and bedtime. I'm noticing irritability, and then I crash super hard. So I'm noticing less energy. So I think I need to cut back, is what I'm trying to say. But I'm curious, how do you all drink caffeine consistently? Do you drink caffeine drinks? Do you drink pre-workout drinks? Like, what's your routine?
I used to drink a lot of caffeine, like way too much, and I drink it all the way to the evening. Until Matthew told me about that book, Why Do We Sleep? Why Do You Sleep? And I cut back to, at one point I was down to 1 cup of coffee and 1 Diet Coke at lunch, and now I just do 2 cups of coffee and that's it for the day. So I feel a lot better, and I don't have quite the drop off, and I have no trouble falling asleep at night.
I drink 1 cup of coffee every day, no more, no less. It's like exactly 1. If I drink 0, I'm angry. I drink two, I'm jittery. I react very violently to too much caffeine. Like Tim used to be able to tell when I had more than one cup of coffee. Like I was just like I was a mess. So I can only
No,
do one. So
no,
I
you were
can't.
definitely a fucking mess. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah. Don't
I
apologize.
can't even relate to what you do, Vince. Like it's like you're an alien talking. I can't imagine drinking more than I can't imagine drinking 2 cups a day, much less 12 or whatever you do. But
Well, it's not cups of coffee; it's espresso, so it's a little
Right.
different. It's less
But it's
caffeine.
But I was actually going to say that's probably part of your problem is that it's smaller, so it feels less, but it's actually a very similar caffeine content, isn't it? So while
Yeah,
we're drinking black coffee in the morning, you're drinking 5, 6 of these little things that add up to the same amount of liquid, but is actually way more potent. So that's why you're probably rolling on it. I drink generally, I'll drink 1 cup kind of right after I get up, and then 1 cup as I'm taking the kids to school, or if I don't have the kids, just like right before work starts. And so every now and then I'll do like a kind of a fun, like you said, milky or like frothy coffee in the afternoon, but very rarely. And I try not to drink soda or energy drinks.
I will tell you this, Vince, that you have this habit and you think like, oh, I can't exist without drinking these 12 or 15, whatever you do. And whenever I've tried to change something like that, like day one, you're like miserable and angry. Day two, day three, you're like, oh yeah, this is fine. Like, I think if you really wanted to break it, you have to be ready for 1 or 2 miserable days, but then I think you can break it.
It's one of the reasons I don't drink espresso, because it's so delicious and it's amazing, and it's a little bit of liquid and it just gets you going. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, and I think I've obviously upticked.
It's like meth.
I've
That's
upticked
like math.
the intake with a newborn, right? So like, because I need to keep up with Woo, I need to have energy so you guys, I know you still talk bad about my strain, but at least I'm having some strain. So I do it for the Woo.
I think it's okay for like short sprints, Vince. Like right now I'm in the middle of a sprint, and so I'm not getting a ton of sleep. I think it's okay to like cycle. But I think, yeah, at some point you're going to need to get off of that.
Yeah.
My coffee consumption is almost the exact same as Mike's. I drink 2 cups of coffee, no more. End it about 10 o'clock every day. I'm really disappointed when my cups are done, but it is literally one of the highlights of my day is drinking my coffee. I just absolutely love it so much.
It's spiritual for me, man. I
Love it.
it.
There's something about like when it first hits your lips on the way to work, and you're just like, God, this is just golden every day. Especially when there's like a little chill outside, maybe in the fall, and it's cold, and you're drinking coffee, and there's just something fun about that.
Makes you feel like you want to have a cigarette. Like, I'm not a smoker, but I'm like, I should have a cigarette with my coffee in the morning, right?
I like being by myself when I'm drinking that coffee. I like being alone and having the coffee. Like I don't want to talk to anybody while I'm doing it.
Yeah, or you have like a deep conversation with somebody that you really like, and you're just hanging out having coffee time together. I like that a little bit too.
That
That's
energy.
what I want to retire in Italy at an espresso bar. I want to own an espresso bar in Italy. So hopefully we take off and I could have early retirement in Italy.
Yeah.
The only time I drink espresso, Vince, is like on a NARPM trip, and it's like we've had a long dinner and drinks, and I'm tired. I want to go to sleep. Mike Krause tells me I have to go out after dinner. That's when I bang espresso. It's the only time.
Is it Mike that generally drives that?
And by espresso, he means Red Bull.
Whatever.
Generally Mike's fault.
Yep.
Mike, you mentioned 535 new units. I'm curious if there's anything you can share to help us get 535 new units by the next time we do this podcast.
Yeah, man. So 461 of them came from one relationship that started with a conversation about strategic gifting. And the last gift I got him was a $100 ping pong paddle. So, that I just did a talk for Denver NARPM, and I'm sorry you missed, Matthew. But one of the top 5 things that we've done at Atrium to grow, period, is just create meaningful relationships. And a lot of that has to do with, thoughtful and strategic gifting. Handwritten cards can be a free form of that, but, we like to try and tie things to people's emotions and, kind of create lasting relationships. So we were looking at, just to go on another tangent, I know we're kind of probably running out of time here, but we were looking at spending money on Google AdWords and our budget was going to be $6,000 for 3 months. And we decided that we could spend that money more effectively if we went out and we spent it on developing relationships, whether it be with brokers or residential real estate agents. And those relationships are going to pay off over the course of the next 10 years, not necessarily just the next 3 months of Google clicks. So we took that $6,000 and we put it aside, and we said we're going to budget this to go spend it creatively on people. So that's one of the things we're doing is really refocusing on creating meaningful relationships with referral partners.
I like it.
Anybody else using gifting as a? I know we talked about this on another podcast, but anybody else started using more gifts?
No, but every time I talk to Mike and he says that, I think I'm going to, and then I always forget. But it sounds awesome.
It takes time, man. You have to focus on it, and we got our whole team thinking about it and focusing on it now, and trying to spend that $6,000, and it's getting fun, getting some creative ideas out of it.
We actually had a really important relationship and sent this guy, I think it's probably right out of that book, Giftology, a set of knives that didn't have anything GK Houses related on it. And the guy was super excited about it, very grateful. And this guy has sent us so much business. I can't tell you what market it's in, but it's been a really fruitful relationship. It's been in our Orlando market. There's one story though. Adam sent the guy a signed football. Tell that story real quick, Mike.
Yeah. So we basically we were talking about a land development deal, and Adam couldn't get this guy to answer his emails. He was just basically getting ghosted. The guy just wasn't responding. So he's like, I got to do something to get this guy's attention. So we started looking him up on Facebook. Turned out he was from Atlanta. We saw that he had posted some stuff about the Atlanta Falcons. So we bought a signed Matt Ryan football and sent it to him and said, hey, just looking forward to working with you down the road. And he sent an email back. He said, thank you so much for the football. You still can't have my parking lot. But he answered it, and it started the communication, and there's been many, many talks since then. And eventually, we are hoping the deal gets done.
That's pretty awesome. So the last part of
maybe he didn't like Matt Ryan that much. Maybe he should have gotten like
Julio Jones is who he should have done. Alabama
Deion
guy.
Sanders.
You can't. All of them can't be home runs. You tried 10, maybe you get 2 or 3.
2 or 3 stories. All right. So the last part of this is, what are you reading? So I'm curious, Mikey, you want to start out with tell us what you're reading right now?
So we just read, and I might have said this on the last one, but we just finished up with our A team, which is the Atrium team that does accounting, animal control, which is HR, asset management. So we just finished up reading Shoe Dog. It's really disappointing to me to hear that you sent your stuff off to a branding agency, considering how organically everything happened with Phil Knight. I hope somebody just comes with a killer idea on your team and just says, screw the branding agency. But Shoe Dog, classic. Everybody's read it. It's amazing.
Vince, what are you reading when you aren't falling asleep at the wheel there post baby?
Yeah, I read both baby books that you gents sent me, so thank you for that. And then
did you cry during the one I sent you?
I may or may not have.
You can't get through it without crying.
And then I just started The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one. It's a good one.
Old Simon. Tim?
I'm going to go off topic here. I'm trying out Masterclass, the app.
Oh, cool. So how long have you been doing that?
Just a couple weeks now. So I started with the one that I really wanted to, which was the Aaron Franklin barbecue one, but I'm saving. He goes through a bunch of different barbecue things, and I'm saving brisket for last, and I'm like saving it for a time I'm just in the perfect mood for it. But there's a bunch of good stuff. I pulled it up real quick. Just the Chris Voss, he wrote that negotiation book that the name of it is escaping me right now, but he's got a class on negotiating. There's a bunch of business stuff. There's a bunch
Never
of
split the difference.
Never split the difference. Thank you. Yep. There's a bunch of leadership stuff. There's a bunch of like just self-awareness stuff on there. Like I'm looking forward to RuPaul's authenticity class. It's a pretty cool app. There's a lot to digest in there, and there's a lot of fun stuff too. But it's really cool.
So based on 2 weeks, how do you think, what's the best way to do that? Is it like, hey, I'm going to take a class over the next week or over the next 2 weeks, or
It's a
just
lot.
have fun with it?
There's a lot. So I'm not sure that I would go full bore into one specific class. Like I would get the membership for the year, which is what I did, as opposed to paying per class, because there's enough in there. I mean, there's an interior design class in there, and I'm going to take one or two of those sections, but there's 25 sections in each class, so it's a lot to take in over a 2 week period. But I would set 15 minutes aside every night and just pick a topic, or go into Robin Roberts and listen to her story for a little while, and then next night try something else. That's kind of how I'm doing it right now. I'm not sure that's the best strategy, but that's the best strategy for a guy with ADD.
Do you screencast it on your TV?
Yep.
Very
Yeah, I've
cool.
got a Google Chromecast that we actually do all of our TV watching. We don't have any cable or anything. We do YouTube TV hooked into a Chromecast. So I cast it from everything from my phone or my Chromebook or whatever.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for sharing that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and I like it better than reading.
My wife and I are both like, man, I want to get this. I want this so bad, and then we've never had the guts to pull the trigger on it.
You know who told me about it is the guy from Culture Index that we met in Las Vegas.
Mark.
Yep, Mark. Yeah, so he told me about it. He said he was really enjoying it, and then I finally pulled the trigger, and I actually pulled the trigger and didn't do anything with it for a while, and then I was like, man, I really got to get in that. So I started putting a calendar reminder in there every night to spend 20 minutes watching it after the kids go to bed.
Awesome, Duke.
So I bought a master class, like one or two classes. I didn't do like the membership, and I was so excited. I bought the one for Phil Ivey about poker, and like Phil Ivey's my favorite poker player. He's like such a genius. He's so good at poker, and he was so bad at explaining why he's good at poker, and I was so disappointed. It was better like just not peeling back the curtain on Phil. But book-wise, I'm finishing up the one thing. I've had a hard time getting through books like this whole year. I'm like way behind on my book, but I'm still got 2 hours left on that on Audible, and then I bought High Performance Habits, Vince. I got that planner and I got the book, but I haven't cracked either one yet. But I'll let you know. Brendan Burchard.
I just got Tim Ferriss's new book, Tribe of Mentors. And basically what he did was he emailed a bunch of famous, successful people 11 questions. And these are the answers to those same 11 questions. So you can just look at it by people that you like. They're only like 3 or 4 pages each. So, it's like toilet reading. You can sit there and read. You can read one, or you can read 3 or 4 different people. But it's not like a huge commitment, and you can pick it up and put it back down. So, so far I've read 3 different people. It's been pretty interesting. And he also did one of these, the Audible version, on his podcast. And
how does that differ from Tools of the Titan?
Yeah, so this is just emailed people that aren't necessarily on his podcast. Tools of Titans is basically a breakdown of his podcast and kind of teasing out healthy, wealthy, and wise. So how to be healthy, how to be wealthy, how to be wise on his that's Tools of Titans. This one is just his 11 questions. Here I can read a couple of the questions real quick, but
I think I know what you're talking about. I was just curious what the difference is between the two, if somebody had read it.
it's like a lot of these are questions he asks everybody on his podcast. What purchase of $100 or less has positively impacted your life in the last 6 months? How has failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure? And you just go through and you can read about how these people answered all these questions.
Well, it's good. I'm glad you're finally getting into Tim Ferriss.
Dude, what do you think the chances of us getting him on this podcast someday are? I mean,
Slim.
if we talk about him in every single episode, maybe just like.
Well, he always talks about how he says no. So we need to at least ask him so he can reject us and we can be rejected by him.
100%. Let's keep.
What are you gonna do when he gets bored, like doing this podcast, and he just stops doing it, Matthew? What are you gonna do with yourself?
I'm going to be super disappointed. I guess I'll have to start listening to somebody else. All right, everybody, I enjoyed this. Like us on wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a review if you enjoyed the content here. Thanks, guys.
Wolfpack.
They all
Hey.
Wolfpack for
Yeah.
life.
See ya.